Hello and welcome to my channel. My name is Titan del 86. Here you will find everything from your favorite characters from anime, series or movies, such as figures, statues, trading cards, and other limited special edition items. I will show you everything that is included. For example, we will discuss the design of the box, how it's packaged, the design of the figure, the articulation points, the accessories that are included, and we will see our favorite characters in special scenes. And you never know, you might see other characters make special guest appearances, so you can decide whether it's worth getting or not. Subscribe and join me on new weekly adventures. Now let's start the show. Let's go. Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome to my channel. My name is Titan del 86, and today from HEX Collectables and Naruto Shippuden, I present to you the 6 Paths of Pain. This is an actual mega size statue that was delivered to me in a pallet. For this edition, I have number 133 out of 300. On the front side of the box, you have this image of the Akatsuki clouds where you have the rain headband slashed, and it says the 6 Paths of Pain with one of the famous quotes, "Those who do not know pain will never understand true peace." On the side of the box, you have the credits, and it tells you that this is number 133 out of the 300 from the size of the editions. And here you got some more of the logos and everything else that is included. On the back side of the box, you have some more catchphrases from Pain. It also includes a statement from HEX Collectibles regarding the statue. Overall, the whole box is outlined with this Akatsuki background, and it has a red border outlined by the edges of the box. On the last corner of the box, you have the HEX logo on the upper section. Then in the mid section, you have all the social medias for how to contact HEX Collectibles or how to follow them online on their websites. On the top side of the box, you have the Naruto Shippuden logo. And I think out of all the statues, this would be the second biggest one. If you recall my video from Saint Seiya Athena, that one, when it was delivered, it came in 3 boxes. It would have been nice if this one would have came in separate boxes, but I think they pushed the limit to deliver it under one. And because it was so massively heavy, it was delivered by a freight truck with a pallet. Once you open the box, you're immediately greeted by this envelope, which kind of reminds me of a vanilla one, except it's painted black with the HEX logo. Once you remove the logo, you are greeted with the HEX imprint on the styrofoam, followed by 2 Velcro tie straps with, again, the HEX logos. Inside the folder, you will see that it comes with a poster with an illustration of what the statue is depicting. So here you have a very beautiful illustration of the 6 Paths of Pain. And honestly, this thing is worth framing. It just looks really nice. The artwork is an amazing piece. So this is the first layer of the styrofoam pack that carries all the miniature pieces, all the different head sculptures for the 6 paths. So here you can see mostly the effect parts and some of the sections for the animal pieces. And as you can see, there are many pieces, and out of the 3 of them, this is the lightweight one. On the second layer of the styrofoam pack, you have the much bigger pieces, which are already into some of the sections of the base. For this one, it focuses more on the bodies of the 6 paths. So that's mostly what you're going to see here in this particular layer. And as you can see, everything is neatly wrapped in tissue paper and foam pads, just to secure that nothing gets broken, because there's a lot of pieces here, and if the box was mistreated or anything, you can bet that you will end up with a broken piece, since everything looks really delicate here. This is the third layer from the styrofoam packs. This one carries mostly the bulk of the weight, which is mostly all the heaviest parts which make up the bottom of the base. And like I mentioned earlier, the whole statue is broken up into 3 different sections where it makes up the foundation of the statue, where all the other pieces stack together, and at some point all these come together to give you that nice full diorama of the full statue. And again, there's a lot of delicate pieces, and this explains why. And this explains why everything came under a giant box shipped with the pallet, at least in my particular case. Here's an overview of everything that is included in the first layer. You have the circuit boards for the LEDs, some extra accessories. Here's the sections that are very fragile. One thing that I noticed is it packaged a lot of different pipes, and you also have all these little delicate pieces included everywhere. but it's mostly pipes. Here's all the forearms for all the different 6 paths. You have a couple tongues, you got some hair, and you have some more pipes, which is mostly 60% pipes. Here's the head sculptures of all the different characters. You can see the Renegon eyes. Here's all their hairstyles. So mostly all the heads come in 2 sections. One's with the faceplate with some hair, then the other second layer is basically the rest of the head sculpture. So here's an overview of everything that was included there. Now looking into the second set, in this one you mostly had all the different bodies. Here's the head of the 3 dogs, there's one of the bases, and here's all the bodies for all the characters. You have some smoke clouds, but it's just mostly the bodies of the characters along with the chameleon head. Here you can see all the nice details that they included on each one of the characters. You also have the tweezers, a coin holder, and the metal plate depicting again the illustration of the statue. One thing that happened to me, and that is something that I didn't show you in the previous scene, is that I accidentally forgot to take this piece, which seems to be a cloud with a metal pipe coming through it. The only way I realized that I was missing this piece was when the instructions asked for it, and I wasn't able to find it because I was a couple clouds short. So then I decided to go back and recheck everything that was in the styrofoam packaging, and exactly in one of the sections this was fully wrapped up in the paper tear tape, and obviously luckily I didn't throw it away or anything, or else I would have been a piece short on the statue. On the third layer of the statue, these are basically everything that added that extra weight to it. Here you have the main pieces of the base. Here's the sculpture of the King of Hell with the fiery flames. You have the coin holder, the coin, the saw, the horn piece of the chameleon. You also have the USB along with the wall plug, which is something that I really like, is that this was included. Here's another base section that has a snake. So in this one, overall you have all the base pieces of the structure, which combined gives you the full diorama. On the bottom of the main base, it gives you the title of the 6 Paths of Pain. It's got the same quote that I showed you earlier in the box, and then again it tells you that I have number 133 out of the 300. The instructions are also included inside the folder. So here's the front page. Again, you get a depiction of the illustration, and the bottom half of it shows you the breakdown of how the pieces are packaged within the styrofoam, which is an overview of all 3 sections. On the first section of the instructions, you have the introduction of the breakdown of the styrofoam broken up into the 3 different sections, showing you exactly what pieces are included, and it gives them an ID number to help you assemble it. So for the instructions, it basically starts out broken up into different sections, because for this massively statue, several sections act as a base, which then they all combine together to give you the full diorama of the 6 paths. Here's the 360 of the coin that came with the statue. On the back side of the coin, you have the HEX logo, and it tells you what number edition I got. So this is number 133 out of 300. On the front side of the coin, you have the face of pain, where at the bottom tells you this is Naruto. So I really like that they featured this special coin to go with the statue. And if you recall from other statues that I have done on this channel, you will see that sometimes they like to include special coins. For example, if you remember the Pokemon statues that I did a long time ago, if you look on the border of the coin, you see that it's got the Akatsuki cloud going all around it. Then it has the text that goes around it that says designed and produced by HEX Collectibles. This is the other option that's provided to you in case you want to take the coin out of the plastic casing and put it in this particular one. So as you can see, this one has got 4 prongs in there to hold the coin. So that is something that I like, that they gave us 2 options on how to store the coin. Here's the metal card that depicts the painting of the statue, and honestly it looks really nice, and I wasn't expecting this either. We did get a plaque from Conan, if you remember that one, but this one on the back side, it looks more like a credit card. But here you can see the nice details of the artwork sketch that the statue is supposed to represent. As well, if you remember earlier on, I showed you the poster that came with it. So this is another representation of the statue, which looks really good. Just look at all the fine details that they included here. It's almost like a mini metal painting. Here's a close-up of each one of the characters from the 6 paths. Here the whole statue is not fully assembled. So this is the first 360 of it, and on this one I do not have the light up effect parts, just so you can see how the statue is. And overall they look really amazing. I like all the details that each one of these characters have, and even though I had many little tiny pieces, at the end of the day it all paid out. Assembling the statue was not as difficult as I thought it would have been, just because of all the fragile tiny pieces that were included. If you follow the instructions line by line, you're basically going to get here with no issues. There are some sections where I did have to do my own different steps. For example, for the Asura path, on the instructions it basically said attach the body to the main statue, and then towards the end put the saw band on the backside. For me, I found that very difficult, so what I ended up doing was I attached the saw band on the backside of the character, and then I attached them into the statue. To me, that was a lot easier than trying to do it the other way on how the instructions were calling it out. And for me, that was because of just how fragile the saw band really was. I had this giant skinny metal wire pole that would attach towards the waist side, and just because of how fragile it was and how accurate you had to be. The other one, and this one was the hardest one to assemble, was the Preta path. For this particular character, it had the chakra going from both sides of the arms and behind the character. So in the instructions it basically wanted the chakra path to be put on the base first, followed by the character, but I really didn't see how that would really fit just because of how the chakra is around the character. So what I ended up doing is I basically put the character first and then kind of just snake my way in for that particular chakra path to go behind them. The other portions that was a little bit difficult for him was getting to align the chakra from both sides of the arms, since basically they're somewhat intercollectively locked on the sleeves and the forearms. But other than that, assembling the statue was fairly easy. I would basically give it a 4 out of 10 on the difficulty level, just because of how delicate you have to be with the many pieces that come with the statue, and also how careful you have to be when manipulating the pieces as well. But other than that, it was basically very straightforward, and it was not a challenge to what I was expecting. So don't let all the mini tiny pieces intimidate you when it comes to assembling this statue, because as you see here, with all the tiny details and everything else, once the statue comes together, it looks very good. The one thing that you really want to be careful is the Naraka and the Preta characters. On their ears, they have the little piercings that are really tiny in the form of spikes. You just have to be very careful because those little sections are very delicate. And if you remember from when I was showing you the overview layout, you will see that in a plastic bag it came with 2 additional pieces, just in case you break one or one of them falls out. You have 2 replaceable parts. But my advice to you is just be very careful with these particular 2 characters, since their head sculptures to me are the most delicate out of the whole set, and it's due because of the ear piercings. And just because of the size of the statue this is how I could best basically give you everything under one frame, because this is one very massive statue and it's also a very heavy one. So now that really explains why the whole thing came to me in a palette. By looking at it overall, it looks really amazing. There's not a corner within the statue that does not have any details on it, and that is something that I really like about the statue and the piece of work that HEX Collectables implemented on the statue. They basically rounded up the full 6 paths of pain, but it also included some of the specialties that we saw from each one of the characters when they showed up in Naruto Shippuden, and everything is all captured under this one collective statue. There's a lot of details in every little corner that you see here, and overall it looks really amazing. The details, the paint jobs, everything that they included here, it basically just goes back to the characters. So to me, HEX Collectables did a really good job on this particular statue. I really like it, even though carrying the statue and storing it is going to be a challenge, but that is something that I will have to figure out later on. For right now, you can just enjoy the beauty of it, which essentially captures everything. And if you're keeping track, I am on a quest of collecting all the Akatsuki members in statue form. So I have already showed you Konan, Itachi, Kisame, Sasori, and now I'm showing you Pain. So that is 5 characters. So I still need to show you Deidara, Hidan, Kakazo, and Setsu. And I'm still debating. I really missed out on the statue of Obito, so maybe I'll get that one later. or maybe I'll get the one from Orochimaru, which was one of the original Akatsuki members, since I think overall the Akatsuki members are 10 characters altogether, since there are 10 rings for the 10 characters. So based on this, I'm only halfway through this special collection that I'm doing full of statues. There are some that I already got eyes on, and the only one that is still in my possession that I haven't shared with you is the Deidara one. All the other ones I'm still on the list to wait because of a pre-purchase, or I just haven't seen the right statue that I'm looking for, because they do depict these statues from time to time, and to me it's just more of finding the one that I best like as best choice scenario to fill in the collection. So just because they have the character out there, if I'm not really feeling the statue, then I'm not really going to go ahead and get it.
Diversion is Shurado, Chikushodo, and Gakido. In the hunt, Tendo, Ningendo, and Jigokudo.
One thing that I liked about HEX Collectibles is that because the statue had a lot of different pipes that all seem very similar, they basically helped you out by identifying each one. So if you look at each pipe, each one at the end is painted with a particular color that basically matches the base of the statue of where that pipe actually goes. So all you have to do is just color match the pipes. That way you can assure you're getting the right pipe in the right section of the statue. So that is something that I like that they thought about, because some of these pipes, they just look really confusing, especially if you take them all out, then you basically lose that reference of the numbers per the instructions. The statue is packaged with 6 portable LED circuit boards, as you see here. Each one of these circuit LED boards comes packaged in its own little mini plastic bag. You just want to be careful when you're taking them out, because just like a regular circuit board, it is somewhat sensitive. So you really don't want to have your hands wet or have any chemicals or anything that could damage the circuit board. And same thing with static. So you really want to be careful when touching the electrical components. So looking at it, this is basically the LED that goes inside each one of the 6 paths. One thing that I did found interesting was on my search for the actual batteries, I actually found out the actual company that makes these from where they got the LEDs from. So you can find this exact circuit board online. Just in case you mess up one of your LEDs or something happens to it, you are able to buy it online. So using IGSI as an example, I'll show you exactly how this is supposed to work. Because if you see it here, you basically have this little section here within the sculpture, and then when you look at it from the back side, you can kind of see that it's got like a little clear plastic piece, which is basically what's supposed to light up through the Renegon's eyes. In case you're wondering, each one of these LEDs takes 2 CR927 batteries. And I know those batteries can be very difficult to find, so you probably have to order them online, because I'm very positive you're not going to be able to find them at your local stores. So this is basically what the battery looks like. As you see, it's very tiny, and each one of them requires 2 of them. So you're better off getting a 12 pack, because it's 6 paths, 6 times 2 gives you the 12. So that's where that comes from. I didn't use the tweezers in order to insert the batteries. So what I've been doing is you kind of take both of them, you stack them, and then you just pop them in there. And obviously the flat piece goes at the bottom, and there you go. So here's the button to make it, to turn it on, and there it is. And this is a very bright LED, and to turn it back off, you hit the button, and there you go. As I was showing you, the back piece is magnetic, so that will basically help hold it in place. So then you can turn it on, and then when you assemble it, this is what she looks like. She looks really possessed now. So hopefully the camera can capture the details, but I know because of the light and all that, you're not really fully able to see the Renegon. But here, if I do it at an angle, so you can see the ripples in the eyes. So again, this is going to be a very bright LED, but that's how it works. And you will need to do a similar thing for each one of the other characters. Now here's a close-up of the statue with another 360, but what I did differently is I have the LEDs now fully activated for the light effects. So like I said, the statue has 3 different options for you to display. One, you can display it without the lights. The second one is displaying it with all the LEDs turned on, where the base comes with two options. You could either have the dark flames with oscillating LED, or you can have it as a steady state. So there's two sources of power that come into these statues. Each one of the 6 paths comes with that battery pack LED that goes into each one of the characters' heads. So you have to basically take the head apart and turn the LED on. So therefore you get the illumination of the Renegon eyes. While the second half of the statue, and this is basically for all the creatures along with the dark flames that are included, those have their own pair of LEDs that are powered through the AC outlet. And if you notice, the statue has a button on the side with a USB-C that you can plug in. And this is the thing that I like, is not only did they give us the cord, but they also gave us the power plug. So you can plug those to your regular electric outlet, and with the button on the base, you can control how you want the LEDs to flash. So again, you have the oscillating one, which is the one I'm showing you here, or you can do a steady state. So I chose the oscillating one just so you can see how it oscillates throughout the statue as I give you the 360. Plus I thought that would be a little bit more funner than if I just gave you a steady state light. And that is the one flaw that I didn't like about this particular statue, is I would have preferred for all the characters to have electrically connected to the main source of the base. And I think they could have done that by using the same plug style that they used for the chameleon head. The chameleon head had a similar electrical connection, similar connection to what we have seen on first 4 figures. If you remember my videos from those particular statues, those characters always come in with a special type of plug that attaches to the statue, which gives you the full interconnections so it can get all the power to the individual LEDs for the characters. And HEX Collectibles only did that for the chameleon head. The other ones are mostly like a battery spring path type of pad, and that is how the King of Hell gets its power from, and also how the dark flames get the power through. And if you look at that main piece behind the head of King of Hell, it's got a big array of LEDs that the top portion attaches to, which then the flames lead to the Naraka path character. So on this one, you can just see how the light just illuminates everything. Overall, the statue looks really nice. I like the details, especially with the light effects. Now you have a second fun factor, but it would have been nice for everything to just been included under one feature, versus having each one of the paths having its own independent light source, because over time I think that can get very frustrating, because you're going to be removing the character's head just to turn on and off the power. And again, you basically have to go and look for those CR927 battery cells, which each one of these characters takes 2 of them. So to fully have the statue in its completeness, you need at least 12. The other thing that they thought about ahead is they gave you the tweezers. So the tweezers not only help you remove the batteries from the LED portions of it, but it also helps you when taking out the electrical board of the LED from the characters' heads. So it gives you the ability to hold it in getting it inside the character, and it also helps you removing it. When inserting the LED inside the character's head, you just have to make sure that the backside of the circuit board aligns with where the magnetic feature is. So that is the only thing that holds the LED unit inside the character's head. So you just have to be very careful not to short circuit it and make sure you insert it correctly, but because sometimes the magnet will try to pull the LED to face the wrong direction. So just be very mindful and use the tweezers to help you with the installation. And you would also have to use the tweezers again to help you remove it. But on some of these, if you do it just right, you can make sure that you install it with a button where your finger can actually give the access. If you do it that way, it would enable you to have somewhat access to the button to turn on and off the circuit. Here's a 360 in complete darkness of what the statue looks like with the oscillating light effect. As you can see, all the paint paths, they have a steady LED light showing the renegons, but the eyes of the other creatures along with the dark flames, they have the oscillating effect. And you can see just how bright it is, especially behind the head of King of Hell, which also has the renegon eyes there. So this is a very bright statue, as you can see. If you like what you're seeing, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and share the video. The only thing that I didn't like is that, if you recall, there's a snake with the renegon eyes that is very close towards where the power button is of the base of the statue. And the sad part is that its eyes do not light up. If you look closely at that snake, the Renegon eyes are only painted on. It would have been nice if they would have made those Renegon eyes of the snake also lit up, because not only is the character very hidden underneath of everything of the statue, as you notice the statue has a lot of things going on, so it is very easy to overlook the snake character. But if you do focus on it, you will see that it's got some really good details on them as well. For this 360, again, it's all done in full darkness. The only thing different is that instead of giving you the oscillating light, this time it's steady light, just so you can see how bright it is and what it looks like when the light is not flickering. So once again, this matches the Renegon eyes that are lighting up for each one of the characters, but now the eyes are also steady on the Renegon eyes for each one of the supporting characters that were done through the summonings. And again, you can see the flames fully lit up. Follow me on IG at Titan del 86. If you're really keeping track, you will notice that HEX Collectables is not the only one that depicted this same exact statue. So Pixar Studios also did their version of it, and theirs was a 1/6 scale, where HEX Collectables, their statue is the 1/8, which is what you're seeing here today. And honestly, looking at both statues, you can kind of see that they follow a very similar path as far as how they depicted the characters and how they did everything. So you have basically all the same elements that each one of the 6 paths was specially known for, and that is something that is just basically up to you, the buyer, to pick which one out of all of them is the better one, and also based on the size and everything. And the details within the 2 statues are also very different. The characters are slightly depicted very differently as well, but overall everything that you get as far as the differences go between the 2 statues, I say they're about 80% similar. The only difference is what are you looking in the statue for. Are you looking at it because of the size, or maybe the characters just have a better pose of one statue versus the other one? For me, I picked HEX Studios because not only did I like how the statue was done, but I also liked how the size of the statue was. And again, another major contributing factor was the cost. The HEX one to me was slightly less than the Pixar version, but again, it goes to the quality and how the characters are depicted. But overall, you can see that with a bigger statue, you can get even more details. But to me, this one was satisfying enough to fill in my checkbox for my paint figure. Let me know in the comments what are your thoughts, especially if you're one that is stuck between the HEX Studios version versus the Pixar, or if you decided to go with the Pixar. Let me know what influenced you on picking a particular one.
Pain. That is a designation that refers to the 6 of us as a group.
Here's a close-up of each section of the statue, just so you can get all the tiny details that I'm not able to provide you when doing all the other scenes. So each one of these characters, they all have a different path. So you have the Diva path, the Sora path, Human path, Animal path, Preta path, and Naraka path, which is where the 6 characters are. So exploring each one of them in full detail, the first one out the gate was the Naraka path. As for the Naraka character, it was basically a priest that Jiraiya had met during one of the journeys. Not a whole lot was emphasized other than he was a very calm, level-headed individual that was very devoted to the religion. So in this one, it had the 2 main abilities, which was the ability of interrogation and restoration. And it used the Kings of Hell, which is that big giant statue that you see with the big gaping mouth and the 2 fists coming out of its mouth. And as you can see it, he looks very ferocious with it. So when the Naraka path summoned it, it will hold the individual, so the victim would be paralyzed as they were being questioned. So depending on the answer, it will use those 2 arms that form a tongue, and it will hold the victim's soul. The other ability that it included was the ability to repair anything that was damaged. So that is how each one of the individual paths would be damaged during the fights, and then they will get regenerated. So this was a major key in Pain's power. For the Animal path, this one to me was the one that was used the most and got most of the screenshots. It was basically 2 characters that ended up with a special ability, and that was because of the first one encountered Jiraiya, and then it became Ajazai. So for this one, it basically had the abilities to summon a drill-bearded bird, a multi-headed dog, the tailed chameleon, a panda, ox, rhino, a crustacean, a centipede. It was also able to summon the King of Hell and other paths of paint. And this is the main character whose abilities is mostly shown throughout this whole statue. So you can see the multi-headed dog, the chameleon, as well as the snake that were being summoned, and that is the whole clouds that make up the bottom of the base. So this character had the ability of just summoning creatures. Now a little bit of detail into Ayisa. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that name right. She was shown in more detail when she was taking the second section of the tuning exams. There she interacted a lot with Team Guy, especially 1010. So you can see that they had similar abilities, but sadly enough, later on in the story, she was featured as a dead corpse, which was provided to Conan, who then gave it to Nagato to create one of the 6 paths, which became the replacement to the original one, and this marks her as being the only female character within the group. The human path has the ability to read the minds, which is done by putting their hands on the target's chest or head, thus obtaining all the information. So the character for the human path, before encountering Jiraiya, as far as his personality goes, not much detail was given other than he was just a ninja who believed that he could do and try anything to achieve peace. So that basically inspired Jiraiya to write about him in one of his encounters. As for the Osora path, out of all of them, this was the one that really stood out the most, and it was just mostly because it was a shinobi who was a master in the puppetry. So in this particular character, he had all the skills and all the mechanical weaponry that you can think of. So it had the ability to mechanize its whole body, and you can see that throughout the entire series of how this ninja basically gave everyone that went up against him a difficult time. As for the Deva path, this is the one that Nagato chose to use Yahiko as the main body. For this path, it came with the ability to manipulate attractive and repulsive forces, which was a very strong technique that was used. It just ties back to Yahiko, who was the original leader of the gang, before Nagato took over after Yahiko was executed by his hands due to the request of Danzo. The next one is the Preta path, which has the ability to absorb chakra of any form. A little bit of background on the Preta path character. He was basically a ninja and a farmer, so each one of these characters has its own different storylines, and some of them is more emphasized than other ones, but the one thing that they all have in common is that in one form or another one, they interacted with Jiraiya when he was on his quest for writing his book. So if you are able to get the statue, I highly recommend it because it's a really good one that is depicting pain. I have seen other statues as well, not to mention the one by Pixar Studios that only depict the Yahiko character. So this is one of the very rare few statues that actually gives you all the 6 paths completed. To me, this one fit everything to what I was looking for. It basically comes with all the different accessories and everything that you can include with a statue these days. You have light up effect parts that you can choose whether to do a steady state or an oscillated state, poster depicting the statue, the metal plaque depicting the statue as well, and it also comes with a coin that you can have as a display feature. And it all comes together perfectly well. Each one of the characters really has its own special abilities displayed within the statue. So HEX Collectibles really thought everything through on the execution. So this is a statue that is executed very well, and it's really good to have in the collection. And to me, this one check marks on my quest for the collection for all the Akatsuki characters in statue format. This is all I have for you today. If you like what you have seen, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe to the channel, share the video, and I'll see you next week with a brand new one. Thank you and bye.
They're all shinobi I've encountered before in my journeys.